the Arab coalition, which is mainly consists of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Sudan, and Morocco, and some other Arab countries. The reason for our intervention is in compliance with, and this is very important, this is in compliance with the intervention of the Arab coalition in Yemen, as well as the ongoing operations around Hodeidah, which is the main port that is keeping the Houthi militia alive and prolonging the war. The Arab coalition so far has liberated 85% of the country since the start of the war. And now the intervention of the Arab coalition in Yemen, as well as the ongoing operation around Hodeidah, are based on the request of the legitimate Yemeni government and in compliance with all relevant UN Security Council resolutions on the crisis, including UN Security Council resolutions 2216, 2204, 2201, 2140. The Arab coalition operations to liberate Hodeidah are aimed at allowing Yemen's legitimate government to restore security and stability to the strategic port by using the port to smuggle Iranian-supplied arms and ballistic missiles into the country to target Saudi cities and misusing the port's revenues to finance their ongoing brutal campaign. The Houthis' mismanagement of the port and seizure of humanitarian supplies, which almost 100% the humanitarian supplies are provided by the Arab coalitions through the UN humanitarian agencies and other international humanitarian agencies. So the Houthis' mismanagement of the port and seizure of humanitarian supplies has had a catastrophic impact on the humanitarian situation in Yemen, while the coalition's aid shipments have frequently been confiscated by militia and found their way to the black market, where they sell and generate revenues to the black market. This has not derailed the Arab coalition's commitment to alleviate the human crisis in Yemen. While UN efforts to negotiate a solution to the issue of Hodeidah have been ongoing for over a year, the Houthis have repeatedly refused the UN envoy's proposals to hand over the port, including the latest push by UN envoy Martin Griffith to hand it over to the UN officials. So basically they have a full control on this port, billions of dollars in terms of humanitarian aid is being controlled by the Houthi and confiscated and distributed to their followers. And at the same time, it's being used to smuggle Iranian weapons, Iranian ballistic missiles to attack Saudi cities, and they have attacked Saudi cities tens of times with ballistic missiles. In light of the Houthis' failure to accept a political solution, the Arab coalition had no option but to pursue a military solution in order to protect innocent Yemeni civilians and to ensure a safe passage of aid shipments. The Arab coalition remains committed to working with the international community to ensure that the port's liberation will have an immediate impact on increasing the volume of much needed humanitarian aid to the Yemeni people. The Arab coalition has also launched a comprehensive humanitarian plan for Hodeidah city to respond to the immediate and long-term humanitarian needs of the Yemeni people and the liberated areas. The Arab coalition has notified the United Nations and other non-governmental organizations of its planned actions and has ensured the safe passage of their staff from Hodeidah ahead of time. The seizure of the port from the Houthi rebels is aimed at tipping the scales in favor of reaching a political solution by liberating Hodeidah and Hodeidah port. We are tipping the balance in favor of a political solution which has been refused by the Houthis for the past 3 years. So this is the main reason, is to bring the Houthi militias to the negotiating table. The seizure of the port from the Houthi rebels is aimed at tipping the scales in favor of reaching a political solution and reigniting the momentum in the stalled UN negotiations. By increasing the efficiency of the port and ensuring that the disbursement of aid will no longer be controlled and abused by Houthi militias. Hodeidah's liberation will serve to alleviate the needs of the Yemeni people and provide a new momentum for finding a long-term solution to the crisis. This is basically the latest development. Of course, the Arab coalition had a major plan, a humanitarian plan for the people of Hodeidah and to other areas in Yemen. The Arab coalition has prepared a large scale. I'm talking about humanitarian now. So now we're moving to the humanitarian plan of the Arab coalition. The Arab coalition has prepared a large-scale and comprehensive surge plan for the rapid delivery of humanitarian aid to Hodeidah and the areas of Yemen that depend on the port. The plan has been under development for months and will be executed in conjunction with any military operation. The surge plan includes food, fuel, medicines, cranes, and shelters to provide for the people who depend on the port until regular aid and commercial shipments can resume. These supplies have been prepositioned on ships and the Red Sea and are ready to move quickly into Hodeidah. The plan has taken into account the various scenarios in a conflict situation, such as the displacement of people, blocking or destruction of roads, and damage to the port due to the mines planted by Houthis. What is really delaying the liberation of Hodeidah, that the Houthi militia have planted mines everywhere. So in order for the Arab coalition to go ahead and liberate, they have to first take out these mines. So this is time consuming. Unfortunately, planting mines is not a good tactic, especially in places or areas where there are scattered population. It also includes plans to improve water and sanitation to prevent disease outbreaks. Hodeidah port remains open to shipping. Should the Houthis attempt to further damage and destroy any port or logistics infrastructures, we have also put contingency plans in place to move aid by other methods to Hodeidah and points beyond, including airdrop. The Houthis have mined the port, and large ship movements will take place once the coalition completes mine clearing operations. The problem of the Houthi militia, the Houthi militia accounts for 1% of the total population of Yemen. Imagine a 1% that is controlling the whole country by force, of course with the support of Iran and Hezbollah. You know Hezbollah, the terrorist group. And the problem is they are, it's like this is not their area. They came from the mountains, their ancestors' land, northern Yemen, and they have controlled the whole country by force. If it was your city or village, you will not dare to mine the roads or the surrounding areas to prevent your people from, dying, because these are mines, you cannot see it. So Houthis have mined the port, and large ship movements will take place once the coalition completes mine clearing operations. The coalition plans to restore operations at Hodeidah airport, which will help complement operations at Hodeidah port. The Houthis also have mined the runway to repairs, so repairs cannot begin until demining operations are completed. On top of the $14 billion that the coalition has already given for aid in Yemen. Since the start of the war, the Arab coalitions have given $14 billion to UN agencies, humanitarian agencies, and other international humanitarian agencies to deliver the needs and to alleviate the suffering of the Yemeni people. On top of the $14 billion that the coalition has already given for aid in Yemen, we continue to work with aid agencies on the ground to ensure that once the port is liberated, we will quickly increase the capacity of the port and the amount of aid flowing through it. The coalition has successfully implemented similar large-scale operations when it liberated Aden. Aden is another city in Yemen that we have liberated 3 years ago. Everywhere the coalition has liberated areas in Yemen, the local people are much better off than under Houthi or Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda? Al-Qaeda control, because they work together. Their aim is to attack the Arab coalition who are. The extensive plans for a humanitarian operation in Hodeidah include close cooperation with international agencies and NGOs operating on the ground, cooperation with Emirates Red Cross, King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. These are major humanitarian organization in Saudi Arabia and UAE, and these are the main donors to the Yemeni people, and the international, of course, through the international humanitarian agencies of UN and others. Outreach to international organizations outside Yemen and setting up a humanitarian operations unit in Hodeidah as part of the overall civilian military stabilization efforts. The logistical components of the plan comprise close cooperation with 5 local organizations having 500 staff members and volunteers to work on the ground in and around Hodeidah.
Why are you now interested in responding or making a statement? What is that? Is there a particular incident?
Yes. The reason, after the Houthi militias, backed by Iran, took over the whole country basically it was a coup. They overthrew the legitimate government and they took over the control of the whole Yemeni country. So at the request of the legitimate government of Yemen, the Arab coalition, which consists of 13 countries. Main ones are Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Sudan, and United Arab Emirates. And we have some other small forces from different Arab countries. The Arab coalition, at the request of the legitimate government, intervened to bring or restore the legitimate government of Yemen. And legitimate government of Yemen went to the United Nations, and the Security Council has adopted so far 4 Security Council resolutions. It's all calling for the restoring the legitimacy of the government of Yemen over all sovereign land of Yemen. And the war has been going on for 3 years. As I mentioned, we have kicked out the Houthis from 80% of the total Yemeni territories. Now there is remaining 15% under the Houthi control. The problem that they have a main port, which is Hodeidah, and this port is being used first of all to smuggle Iranian weapons
To where?
to Yemen.
To Yemen.
Yeah, to be used by them to continue fighting against all. I'm talking against all these resolutions. Second, the Arab coalition, as I mentioned, they have given $14 billion for humanitarian agencies as a humanitarian aid to the Yemeni people. And the problem is that through the UN agencies, but the UN agencies ship it to Hodeidah port, which is controlled by Houthis. So they take these shipments, aid, food, shelter, whatever, you name it, from whatever you think. And they take it and they use it and give it for their soldiers or followers or whoever, or their militia, to prolong the war, to continue fighting, and refusing to sit to a negotiating table with the legitimate government. Second one is to use it to sell it in the black market and make revenue to give salaries for their militia. And as I mentioned first, is to smuggle the Iranian weapons, including the ballistic missiles that has been used tens of times to attack the city of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and to attack the capital of Saudi Arabia with the ballistic, basically ballistic missiles is a long-range one with a great capacity of destruction. So
What are you going to do?
So and we have asked the United Nations several times. Of course, we have asked the United Nations appointed several envoys to this crisis. All of them failed in convincing the Houthis to come to a negotiating table. They refused.
Do they give reasons?
Reasons, because one of the reasons is to accept the return of the legitimate government, to hand over their weapons, I mean, imagine this in Rwanda. You got my point? Imagine this Rwanda, legitimate government by the president of Paul Kagame, His Excellency Paul Kagame, and 1% of the population is controlling the country and refuse. You know, imagine this situation here. They don't want to if they don't hand over ballistic missiles, these are not normal missiles or not normal weapons. So the reason for them is refusing to hand over to the United Nations their destruction, their weapon of destruction. Several UN envoys failed to convince them to accept the conditions according to these resolutions, Security Council resolutions.
So as a coalition, what are you going to do?
As a coalition, we have asked the United Nations many times.
You're tired now.
No, many times. Either United Nations control the port.
By force.
No, but I mean, well, no. I mean, just to control the port. So we are sure that whatever we give is going to go to the needy people, to the people in need of a humanitarian aid, not to the hands. Imagine you are giving 14 billions to your enemy. It's basically a.
Do you think these UN agencies are involved?
No, I think the UN agencies are responding to, and the UN agencies have, from my experience, they have no control. They want their, they just want to deliver this food and humanitarian aid.
But they know it doesn't go to the beneficiaries.
Well, they sometimes they said it's delivered. They said they're not sure 100%. The Arab coalition has asked several times the United Nations is either to take the control of Hodeidah port and to be inspecting whatever comes to the port. It's not about the humanitarian aid now. It's about the smuggling of weapons of mass destruction. So the UN has had one answer: we have no capacity. We cannot do this.
But the coalition can do that.
Yes. So the coalition have decided to take matters into
Their own hands.
their own hands.
You're going to do that?
We have started. This is why I'm holding this press release.
Are you
We
going
have,
to use military?
of course, it's being used now for 3 days. We gave ultimatum to the Houthi to leave the city and the port, to hand it over.
It takes.
Yeah, and we have given ultimatum for all humanitarian aid workers, international agencies, whatever, to evacuate the city, because tens of thousands of Yemeni troops are approaching the Hodeidah city. They want to liberate Hodeidah city, Hodeidah airport, Hodeidah port. So these tens of thousands of Yemeni forces belong to the legitimate government of Yemen. They are backed by a UAE Air Force, a UAE Special Forces on ground, and four soldiers of UAE were killed in the first day.
You're not the only one involved there.
Yes, Saudi Arabia, Sudan.
You're not mentioning Americans.
No, Americans are not involved.
Really?
They're not involved at all. In fact, the Americans are telling us not to go ahead with it. And if you go to the press release of Pompeo.
Why are they saying that?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, even the United Kingdom has called for an emergency Security Council session to issue a resolution calling to stop the Arab coalition from liberating Hodeidah. They have their own reason. They're quoting humanitarian crisis might escalate and that things. And United States is is not supporting, at least through statements, the Arab coalition from liberating Hodeidah and some other countries in the West. But we enjoy the support of so many countries in Africa.
Such as Rwanda?
Rwanda is a friend of us.
Why?
Rwanda?
He's a friend.
Yeah, a friend of us.
So you are...
Rwanda, no, there is no public statement by the Rwanda government. But Rwanda, the government of Rwanda, is a very close friend of the United Arab Emirates. We enjoy one of the best relations that the two countries have in Arab world and Africa. So there is no public statement by the government of Rwanda.